afternoon, we have His Grace Shri Gaur Gopal Das ji. He doesn't really need an introduction. He's a motivational speaker, he's an author, he's a spiritual coach, a guru, a monk, all rolled into one. Welcome, Shri Gaur Gopal Das ji.
Thank you very much.
To us.
Thank you.
First of all, how did this journey begin? How did you evolve into what you are today? Because you started as a engineer, you worked in a company, you had a regular family in a good way. So how did this evolution happen?
I think one of the key factors for my evolution, and I feel a key factor for the evolution of a lot of other people out there, is how much do we really listen to the voice that's speaking to us from within? There's so much noise outside of opinions, of thought processes. And people have so much to say. At times, people even give you good advice. Even good advice can become noise. Because when we are so much drowned in the noise of everybody else out there, we forget to listen to our own voice. What is it that I want to do? What is it that I'm meant to do? What is it that I'm here for? What is my purpose in life? But the problem is there's just so much noise, we always take the beaten path. And we don't want to take the road less traveled because we don't want to listen to our voice. So I feel for myself the key factor in taking up this journey was being very authentic, honest, genuine, very loyal to my own voice. And that voice was saying from within that I'm just not meant to work with machines and systems. I'm very good at it. I can do well with it. But I'm not finding fulfillment. This is not what I see myself doing for the rest of my life. What is it that I want to do for the rest of my life? And which is why a lot of times we have to pause and disconnect from the noise outside to be able to listen to our own voice. That, I suppose, was the beginning of that journey. To be able to just stay, pause, wait, listen to what my mind has to say, what my voice has to say, and then take it from there to see whether it's feasible, whether it's not feasible, how can it be feasible. It's not that everybody who listens to their voice can do it right away. There are so many limitations. People live in families, people have financial liabilities to take care of, they have terminally ill patients at home. So they may have a certain voice to follow, but it's not that they're going to be able to do it right away. But at least to be authentically able to listen to that voice and say, this is me, and this is what I want to do. Maybe I'm not able to do it right now. I can pause it, but I don't need to stop it. There may be a point in time in life that possibly may be able to pursue that journey.
Of course, starting that realization and starting is important.
Right.
And then once you go down that road less traveled, the paths emerges.
Right.
And you build on it. So early in your journey, on this journey of being a motivational speaker or someone who gives some tips for life to people.
Right.
What made you realize that what you were putting out there was working? What were the first few moments of truth?
Yeah. I think for me, initially I was doing it because it was who I was. I wasn't really thinking about whether it's going to scale up. Because when you start your journey, you don't think about scale.
Absolutely.
When you start your journey not to impress others, but to express yourself. You start your journey not for an applause, but for a cause. Right. So I really didn't even think that it's going to go out somewhere and it's going to scale up and it's going to change people's lives. I found my interest in doing this, spiritual teaching, spoken in a relevant, contemporary way with very real life examples that are in the frame of reference of the general masses, the general people. I mean, if as a spiritual personality you could just be a high up there, and your frame of reference and the frame of the reference of people who are listening to you are totally different, and people can't connect. So for me, I was just doing it as self-expression, and then I guess what I was saying resonated with people. Because it was real, it was in their frame of reference, it was relevant, it was contemporary, it had some applicability. It was practical. I guess that resonated with people. They asked for more. I kept giving it. And it's a loop. Like I was saying to somebody the other day, people who are public figures or people who are known to be someone in the world, they're all made by the general people. You as someone, you could be doing something, but unless people accept you, unless people put that crown on your head that we accept you as to be A, B, or C, who are we? We may have the best talents, we may have the best thought processes, we may have the best product to offer, but unless people endorse it, unless people accept it, unless people see the value in it, we can just keep doing it as self-expression, but may or may not reach out there. So for me, it began as self-expression, and I must say that I'm so extremely grateful to the people of this country and a lot of people out there in the world internationally as well, that they've showered so much love, they have offered so much support, they have endorsed what I was saying, they were happy to receive more, and it's all a loop. I feed on their energy, they feed on my energy, and the purpose is to serve each other. They serve me by inspiring me to produce more content, and I serve them by giving what I have.
Absolutely. Clearly the impact and the relatability went together, and it has brought you to where you are.
Yeah.
You have a sizable following.
Yes.
Your talks and your, messages are seen millions of times. Yeah. And your third book is making the waves. It formally gets launched soon, but your third and latest book, Energize Your Mind, a Monk's Guide to Mindful Living, is out now.
Yes.
I must tell you, yesterday on Delhi streets, those people who sell...
Oh yeah.
He had your book when I was coming to the airport.
Sorry. You had to see my face there too.
No, of course. But the fact is they pick up books that they believe will do well.
Yes.
So clearly in a short... So, what prompted you to write this third book? What's in this book that is different than your first two books? Who should read it? What is the central core of this book?
Right. In writing Energize Your Mind, the one thing that really struck me hard was how people are suffering so much with mental health issues. John Milton said that the mind can make hell out of heaven and heaven out of hell. One could be in the most heavenly situation, but when the mind is messed up, the experience is hell. And one could be in the most hellish situation, but when the mind is together, stable, peaceful, inspired, even in the most hellish situation, you can experience heaven. So, seeing people go through so much, it's very painful. Very painful to see people having so much potential, but not being able to live up to their potential professionally at times, and not being able to live up to their potential even in terms of the experience of their life. Happiness, for example. Just because the mind is troubling them so much, and all of us for that matter. Why do we say them and us? It's all of us. The mind bothers each one of us in our own ways, with our own flavors. The key purpose of Energize Your Mind was that, to be able to, and you know what happens a lot of times, people can't even talk openly.
Sure.
They can't even talk openly. Mental health still has that taboo associated with it.
They get judged.
They get labeled, they get branded, Imagine if you had a physical health issue, you were to go to a doctor. Would anybody criticize you for going to a doctor? Would anybody call you names? Would anybody gossip about that? But if somebody has to go to a psychiatrist, there's gossip, there's talk. And it's so sad, right? If my body is ill, I need to go to a professional who knows how to heal it. If my mind is ill, I can even in my body, for example, there'll be some self-help things. Like my nani dadi will tell me, thoda ajwain kha lena, pet theek ho jayega. That's self-help for my physical ailments. But when self-help doesn't help, I have to go to a medical doctor. So even when it comes to mental health and issues related to the mind, there is self-help stuff which we can kind of deal with it ourselves. But there'll be times when we might have to go to professionals, and I feel that taboo has to be taken away. The purpose of Energize Your Mind was people can't talk, people can't speak openly, to be able to talk about the emotions, the feelings, the thoughts we go through in our mind, whether it's guilt, whether it's depression, whether it's mental chatter, whether it's being criticized by somebody, whether it is, FOMO, whatever it is. So, and in order to do so, I felt I have to be vulnerable. If I'm just sitting on a pedestal and talking about it as a philosophy, it's no big deal. I thought I will have to share my weak points. I will have to share stories where I had issues. Because that's when I've now become a friend, not a guru or a mentor. As a guru or a mentor, I could just sit up there and say, this is what is to be done. But as a friend, I said, this happened to me and I did this. See if it helps you. So, Energize Your Mind is for everybody who goes through smaller or bigger issues in the mind and want to deal with them. And it's not just about dealing with issues. Energize Your Mind, even if somebody doesn't have an issue, let's say, Energize Your Mind is to be able to empower yourself to deal with your mind in a way that you can make the most out of the opportunities that you have in life.
Yeah, and especially these days, sometimes we tend to magnify our small issues.
Oh, yes.
And ignore the multiple blessings
Absolutely.
We may have in all aspects of our
100%.
life. Abundance is there. It takes sometimes
Yes.
a nudge from you or reading a book to find that abundance, to acknowledge that abundance. One thing touched me last time I spoke to you at the IBLF was, I asked you what is your mission, what is your bucket list, and you said, I meet people, but I like to spend more time with them.
That's right.
In a deeper, more impactful way. So what is the mission of your life?
Yeah. All right. The mission of my life is to be able to touch somebody's heart, to be able to make a difference in their lives, to be able to serve them in a way that they can empower themselves to make the most out of the potential they have, to be able to help them lead a peaceful, more stable, quality, happy life. That's the mission for me. All what I say and do is directed towards that. And yes, I love to spend time with people one-on-one, and I love to sit with them, talk to them. You know how life is, the more you kind of get all over the place, it just gets harder and harder to be able to do that. When you have hundreds and thousands of commitments on a yearly basis, it becomes very difficult to be able to spend that quality time with individuals. I know there's limitations that I have and all of us have in a busy life that we lead. At the same time, as soon as I do get a chance, I spend time with people. And I also believe in one thing. Spending time is not necessarily spending an hour. I might meet someone at an airport who's read the book and is just so much wanting to just say hello and take a picture. Now, when they come and take that picture with me and say those 2 lines of gratitude with tears in their eyes of how whatever we have tried to do has helped them, I know I can't spend an hour, but I know that the 1 minute that I have with them, can I give myself fully? Spending time is not necessarily quantum always.
It's being mindful.
Spending time is quality. Quality. We always think spending time is quantity. But it's quality. Being in the moment, making that person feel special, making that person feel valued, making that person feel appreciated. That's what lacks in the world. People just don't feel encouraged. People just don't feel appreciated. Everybody is there just to get something out of you. Everybody is there with an agenda in their minds. But if you just have that one moment with somebody where you're just selflessly trying to give yourself fully and make them feel valued, appreciated, supported, I think that's quality time to me, And as much as they would like to spend more time, and as much as I would like to sit with them and spend more time, they know and I know that it's just out of the possibilities of doing that. But yeah, that's what I try to do. Wherever I am, I'm there. If I'm with somebody, even if it's 30 seconds, I'm with them and I try to see if I can make them feel happy and special.
Again, the title of your book is Energize Your Mind.
Yeah.
A Monk's Guide to Mindful Living.
Right.
What is mindful living?
Yeah. Mindful living to me is this. Years back, I I did a slight reflection. I meditate, I chant every day for an hour and a half. And an hour and a half of continuous chanting or meditation, just being in that mental space. For people who meditate, know how hard that is to be able to be present in whether you're just thinking of nothing or listening to a mantra or focusing on a point, whatever may be the object of your meditation. It's hard to just be present there through an hour and a half. That's insanity. That's insanity to be there for an hour and a half. I realized it's intense. It's not possible. It takes years and years and ages of practice, what we call sadhana in Sanskrit, to be able to reach that state. I realized one thing. An hour and a half of being mindful in my meditation was just a part of the 24 hours. 22 and a half hours was an entire day for me to lead. How mindful was I in the 22.5 hours would reflect in the 1.5 hours. I sit there to meditate, to be mindful and completely present in the now when I meditate. And I know I'm not being able to do that because for the 22.5 hours I was not mindful. So is mindful a moment? Is mindfulness meditation? Mindfulness is life. To be present in what I do. I decided back in the day that one meal of my day, I have to take that meal just by myself. No talking to anybody, no reading, no listening, no phones, no television, no nothing. Just eating. It wasn't about the meal. It was about getting into the mode of being completely present. And to be able to be present, we have to disconnect. If I'm not able to disconnect myself from everything that's happening around, how do I be present? Now, internal disconnection may be hard because so many noises going on in there. But at least external disconnection to be able to be in that moment. So I think mindfulness could be as tiny as just taking a meal while being completely present. Mindfulness can be as tiny as while you're watching a movie, just watching a movie and not thinking anything about anything else. People think mindfulness means some esoteric spiritual practice. What about when you're doing your work and you're being completely into it, you're mindful?
Power of now.
The power of now.
By being in it fully.
By being in it fully. And then that will reflect into whatever spiritual practice, the apparent or separate spiritual practice, as we might call it, like meditation or whatever else, they'll reflect into it. So to me, mindfulness is life. It's not like a, sit down and just practice. That's good too. That's very good too. But I don't think that's so easy to practice because the mind is so distracted. So why not we condition our mind to be present first? Then when we sit down, the mind is already conditioned. It is habituated. It will come to the point that you're wanting it to come to. So I think that's so much for me, mindful living, being present. Like I'm with you here. I have a flight to take right now, but I have no thoughts about the flight in my mind. Completely, 200% with you. Now what this will do is when I go in the evening and I'm doing a talk, this is going to feed into that because my mind is getting accustomed to be present. I'll be completely present in the talk. Tomorrow morning when I sit for my chanting, this will reflect into that. And I'll be present in my chanting. So I think that's to me mindfulness and mindful living.
Now, there is a saying that you cannot give with an empty pocket.
Right.
Or an empty heart.
Absolutely.
How do you equip yourself?
Right.
Of course, a lot of it is by observation.
Yes.
And now you've done it for many years.
Right.
So you build on what you've done. But how do you get inspiration? How do you get content?
Right.
How do you weave the stories? How do you upgrade yourself every now and then?
Right. That's such a relevant question, right? Because you can't pour out of an empty jar. The jar has to be filled for it to be able to give something to others. Whether it's in terms of motivation, inspiration or content, whatever. You can't give love unless you feel loved. You can't motivate another person unless you feel motivated. You can't inspire another unless you're inspired. You can't say anything unless you've lived it. Or then it just comes into the realm of hypocrisy. So, what do I do to fill in my well? Right. Number one is for sure my own spiritual practice. Because a lot of answers are found in that silence. Right. It's not that we have to always listen to a lot or read a lot to get those answers. A lot of answers and reflections are found in steady silence. There's a voice from within. Some people may call it God, some people may call it sixth sense, or whatever people call it. There's a voice that speaks from within. And the problem is, like I mentioned earlier, but I was mentioning the analogy for external noise and our voices are calling, but here I'm using the same analogy of noise and voice, that in the noise of all those things inside, we can tend to ignore that voice. So silencing, to be able to just take those moments of silence, whether it's your practice of chanting, meditation, mindfulness, whatever, that silence, that pause. There's a lot that can be heard in those moments of silence, and I feel there's a lot of reflections that come in when you practice that silence, number one. Number two, undoubtedly, there's so much out there where you can read. There's so many brilliant people who have written so much and said so much. There's online content, there is books available. And like I mentioned to you earlier when we met at the IBLF, that it would be very haughty to say that we know it all. It's very high-headed. We're always learning and we're always work in progress. So I love reading other people. I love listening to other people too. Then there is, of course, reading your core books. Like for me, it's the Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is my core book. The Upanishads, the Vedanta, they are all my core books. I love reading them, and I feel that the treasure that exists in those books, in fact, everybody else who's writing something, is built on some concepts coming from there, because they're such ancient, age-old, they are eternal, ancient, age-old, fundamental, foundational principles. So that's, of course, there. And then observation, as you rightly said, you're observing life, you're observing people, you're observing what's happening around you. And most certainly it's your own experiences. Interactions with people. You hear so many stories from people. People are coming and pouring their heart out. They're sharing their stories, they're sharing their realizations, they're sharing their experiences, they're sharing their journeys. And all of these put together is what enriches you and makes your experience richer. And then when you share it, it adds value to the lives of people. So once again, I must say that it would be too much to take credit for what we do, because it's not just me who's saying things. It's so much I learn from so many people, and so stories I hear from so many people. Learning so much from the Vedanta, Upanishads, the Gita, the Bhagavad, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, the epics of this country. So many authors, so many speakers. You listen to so many people. And so it would be too much to say that it's all, the credit is ours. It can't be. The only credit we have is probably we are trying to be a genuine, sincere learner, and are trying to be a genuine, authentic person who wants to serve and share. That's something that we could say we can do. But rest is, we are made up of so much,
Now, I'm sure when people come to you for advice, either one-on-one or in public forums, happiness is what they're chasing.
Yes.
Now, happiness is a very elusive
Absolutely.
butterfly.
Absolutely.
What is your advice to people who want to be more happy?
My one advice would be, there's so many things you could speak when it comes to happiness. The one thing I'd like to say is, do not over-obsess with happiness. We are too obsessed that I want to be happy all the time. We are human beings. And as human beings, we have our low moments. We feel low. Today I'm ill. I had a very bad throat infection, and I'm on very, very heavy antibiotics. And in fact, they've put me on a steroid because 3 days continuous events and travel. So it's all right if I'm a little exhausted. I don't have to put up a face all the time that it's all fine. To be able to say that I'm fine all the time, I'm happy all the time, I'm positive all the time. That's too much pressure on the mind. And that pressure is causing unhappiness. The pressure to be happy is making us unhappy. The pressure to be positive all the time is making us negative. The negativity, the misery, the anguish, the agony is coming from the self-created pressure then I need to be happy and positive all the time. So take it easy. Don't pressurize yourself. Life is such. There'll be moments when you won't be able to pep yourself up and lift yourself up. It's all right. Go through it. Unless it's a chronic situation. When it becomes a chronic situation, you need external help. But otherwise, on a day-to-day basis, we all have those moments. And it's all right. If I'm low, I'm low. I don't have to necessarily come out of it immediately. It's okay. Chalta hai, But this pressure is creating trouble. So my suggestion is, if you want to be happy, firstly, stop putting that pressure on yourself that I need to be happy all the time. You want to be positive, first stop putting that pressure on yourself that I need to be positive all the time. If you want to be happy all the time, that pressure is toxic happiness. If I want to be positive all the time, that's called toxic positivity. It's toxic. It although it has the external flavor of happiness or positivity, it creates tremendous negativity, that pressure. So I see a lot of people do that. And therefore I feel when it comes to happiness, take it easy. It'll come. You'll have your good moments. And when you have your bad moments, accept them. Even they help you to grow.
And they're fleeting.
Yeah. They pass. It's okay.
You have lots of quotable quotes. One जो आप हिंदी में कहते हैं कि जो सुख में साथ दे वो दोस्त है रिश्ते हैं और जो दुख में साथ दे वो फरिश्ते हैं
right.
So what are your top 5 quotes that you like saying?
My top 5 quotes? Oh, I have to come up with those. There's so many. So now at the spur of the moment, let me see what I can get. But one of the Hindi ones that I like was from a shair or a poet called Bashar, Urdu shair. He said something very nice, beautiful. He said, उन्हें कामयाबी में सुकून नजर आया तो वो भागते गए. हमें सुकून में कामयाबी नजर आई तो हम ठहर गए. उन्हें कामयाबी में सुकून नजर आया तो दौड़ते गए. हमें सुकून में कामयाबी नजर आई तो हम ठहर गए. इन सब चीजों के पीछे बशर तू क्या कर रहा है? इतना तो जीना भी नहीं है जितना तू मर रहा है. When I heard that and I read that for the first time, I said it just summarizes life. That कामयाबी में सुकून से पहले सुकून में कामयाबी ढूंढिए. Pause, take it easy. When you pause, you can hit back with double the force. Taking a step back is not a defeat. It's a success when in that step back, you're trying to now gain the energy to go back with double the momentum. That is kamyabi. And then that last line was so beautiful. Itna to jeena bhi nahi hai, jitna tu mar raha hai. Constantly dying every day instead of living. People are dying. Just to reach somewhere again.
Scarcity mindset.
Yeah, again, yes.
Metaphorically.
Yes.
Just to build on what you said. Similarly, this success comes when you're happy or contented.
Yes. Yes.
Rather than the other way around. You also talked about how to motivate human beings. We are a business editorial program.
Right.
Now, how do you think business leaders can balance maximizing output and compassion?
Correct. That's a very tricky balance, isn't it? Very tricky balance. One of my favorite quotes is, somebody said, I don't care how much you know until I know how much you care. In a world where we're leading human beings, which is why I hate calling human being a resource. How do you call a human being a resource? It's not money, it's not some material to call it a resource.
You said move to human asset.
Asset, yes. If you remember that, yeah, I called human being assets. So I don't like that word resource, right? Because we're dealing with emotions, we're dealing with feelings, we're dealing with real life, and we really do not know at times what space people come from, what they're going through, their journeys, their struggles, sometimes it's a terminally ill patient at home and the gentleman or the lady is coming at work. We don't know what they're going through. Sometimes somebody is going through a relationship breakup or divorce, separation. We don't know what they're going through. Sometimes somebody is going through massive health ailment and we don't know what they're going through. Since we deal with human beings, it's very, very important that we start cultivating empathy and compassion, because a person who feels valued, appreciated, encouraged will do more than what they are asked of. And I often ask people in the corporate world, what do you want people to work for? Do you want them to work for a paycheck, or do you want them to work for you? That choice you have to make. If you want them to work for your paycheck, do whatever you want to do with them. Doesn't matter. They'll get their paycheck, they'll cut corners. They're not working for you, they're working for the paycheck. So they're not going to give their heart, their blood, their sweat, their tears to what you're doing. They don't believe in you. They don't believe in your mission. They don't believe in your product. They don't believe in your organization. They just believe in the paycheck. And why do they believe in the paycheck? Because they came for the paycheck. Why do they believe in the paycheck? Because you treated them as a resource. So when I treat them as a resource, they'll act as a resource. Right? Who is responsible for why they behave as a resource? Because I call them a resource. I treat them as a resource. So they give back what we give them. Right? So if we want them to work for a paycheck, it doesn't matter how you treat them. It's a number. If they don't care for you, they'll go take another job and find another thick fat paycheck somewhere else. But if you want them to work for you, your vision, your organization, what you're giving out to the world, then you need to win their hearts. You need to get them aligned with your vision, aligned with your purpose. And that alignment will not happen if we consider them a resource. That alignment will only happen if we consider them an asset, a human asset. So, having said that there is need for empathy, there's need for compassion, there's need to get out of that shell that it's all about numbers, and to know that when we actually align them with our vision, the numbers will scale up like never before, because they're giving their blood and sweat to it now. Not just their 8 hours for a thick fat paycheck. No, they're not. They're giving their time for a vision. So you ask them to extend themselves, without a complaint they will extend themselves, because they believe in what you're doing. Now, having said that empathy and compassion is very much essential, it is also important to look at the business side of it. When you're running an organization, we know that ultimately it's they who are going to bring the numbers and they are important and all of that, but business means numbers as well. Right? So we're not going to compromise with the growth, obviously. There has to be a balance. Now, like I said earlier, when we get people with us, the numbers will automatically go up, because people are working for the vision. There will always be a few people who will take undue advantage of our compassion, will take undue advantage of our empathy, will take undue advantage of our goodness, and that's okay. Those people are going to be there. If by and large you see many people in the organization are doing that, that's when you'll have to redefine how to tweak your strategies a little bit. But if there's going to be 1 or 2 odd people there, ऐसे hardwired लोग हर जगह होते हैं. So just because of these guys, we don't need to change the way we deal with everybody else, thinking मैं इनसे अच्छा ऐसे behave कर रहा था, ये देखो ऐसे लोग करते हैं. 1-2 वैसे रहने ही वाले हैं. Right? So that balance is key, and where people are like, what was the name of the company? Was it, I can't get the name. It was in the United States, a construction company. It's just not on my mind right now. This gentleman gave what, 100 million, 130 million. They got a huge profit that year, real estate. And he gave out 100 million as bonus to his people. It wasn't about money. It was about people feeling, hey, he cares. And you see how people then kind of come and do things for that company, that the company grows beyond leaps and bounds. So it's not always financial. Finance is one aspect of it. In the world today in particular, people really need to feel valued. People really need to feel appreciated. I mean, people are doing so much, and when you can't say 2 words, they say, यार इधर पैसा मिल रहा है, इधर हमारी कीमत नहीं है. ऐसा पैसा दूसरी जगह भी मिल जाएगा. उधर जाते हैं जहाँ कीमत होगी. People.
I agree with you. Yeah. I think genuine appreciation has more power than
absolutely
just pure money, because somebody else can pay more money.
Yes.
My last 2 questions. One is, 10 days back when you were at IBLM, you shared this incident of somebody blaming you for your father.
Oh, yeah.
And how you overcame that, how you dealt with grief. how you dealt with the authentic self you are and made peace with
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And in some way, you brought that out in the book.
Yeah.
And how it made your readers
Yeah.
and your followers, your community relate
Yeah.
that these things happen.
Right.
Don't get too involved with such things.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I think just because I'm being invited for all the social drama around doesn't mean I need to be a part of the drama. I may be involved with all the social drama and they may give me the front row seat to sit and watch the drama, but it's still drama that's affecting me, which I didn't want to go to. So we have to learn to say that no, that I'm not going to be a part of this drama. This individual is going to do what he or she does. I have to draw my boundary by saying whether he or she, I give the right to this person to affect my life. And when I say, like a lot of times I say forgiveness and letting go of what people have done to us is less about forgiving them and more about finding our own peace. You know, it's why am I allowing somebody to ruin my peace? They did what they did and they're leading a merry life. And I am suffering, carrying that in my mind. So वो लोग तो खुश हैं, मुझे तकलीफ हो रही है इधर मैं पकड़ के बैठा हूँ कि इसने ऐसा किया इसने ऐसा किया. So at some point I think we have to let go of those things for our own peace. That social drama that's going on, they may invite me for that. I have chosen to say a no. I don't want to be a part of it. There'll be sometimes that some social drama that you can't avoid. You have to be there. Front row ticket. And in such a situation, I can still be there but switch off. I don't know if you have been in a conversation where you didn't want to be in a conversation and you switched off. There I don't practice mindfulness because it's toxic. Mindfulness means it's a valuable conversation, I'm mindful. But if it's a toxic stuff, I don't need to be mindful and present there. I need to switch myself off. So I may be invited to that social drama. I may not have choices. I was at my father's funeral. I didn't have a choice. That man was standing there and speaking stuff that was like not done. Nobody says that at a funeral. I'm standing right there. Right? And at that point, it did kind of get on to me. It would to anybody. It's your father's body is still lying there. And it's calling you the cause of your father's death. It can get on to anybody. But then you have to make that conscious decision that just because I'm sitting in the front row of the theater because I've been in this drama, I can switch off.
A lot of people project.
Yeah.
It's their own state of mind.
Yeah.
It's their own perception.
Absolutely. 100%.
They're projecting it on you.
They're projecting.
It's not about you, it's about their
Absolutely. I'm reminded of a beautiful quote which says, what Susie says of Sally says more of Susie than Sally.
Absolutely.
Just a self-projection of what they are going through. Very true.
My last question to you. We are talking in early 2023.
Right.
While you take things spontaneously, go with the flow,
right?
And God and the universe presents opportunities,
right?
Responds to your goodness that you put out there. What are your goals for 2023?
Mm-hmm.
Both personal and professional.
Correct. Professional goals. We've come up with this app Monkeyfy.
Of course.
So since the app Monkeyfy is out there, we're going to look at how through the year we make it better and we make it more and more refined for people who are using it. We add more valuable content. We take feedback from people who are using it and constructively loop that feedback into the content on Monkeyfy. So I think my year will be taken up by Monkeyfy. Of course, my book tour, Energize My Mind, apart from all the other events. That will probably be 2023 for me, from the work front, if you might call that. Personally for me, in the year 2023, I would like to deepen the quality of my meditation. When, there's no end to how deep you can go. It's like a bottomless, shoreless ocean. There's no end to how deep you can go. Externally, there are limits. There's a bar over everything. This is how much you can go because of limitations. Internally, there's no limit. So every year, you see how deep you go into your practices, how deep you enter into connecting with your own self, connecting with the universe, connecting with God, whatever you call it. And that connection is something that fulfills you, satisfies you so deeply and in such profound ways that it spills out through whatever you say, whatever you write. And it is that satisfaction that reaches the hearts of people. So if I don't feel that depth, I will not be able to bring that depth to whatever I do. So on a personal front, my goal for 2023 would be to get deeper, connect on a much deeper level. Not to say that I don't, but like I said, there's no end to it. The more deeper I go, the better I can serve others.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Batra. Thank you so much.
All mine.